Yeah.
I was because I was on a roll. So um, we have this thing called genetic mutation, which is kind of how life keeps reinventing itself, right? Because essentially what that means, boiled down, is every once in a while things don't work the way the rules say that they're supposed to work, and something new is entered into the mix genetically. So it's kind of like this. People appear, um, they're not, I'm not saying they're mutations, but they're literally appearing to advance the status quo. It's part of life. It's the way life works. It keeps moving itself forward. And so we have people getting born who are visionaries, who have ways and ideas of how we can solve problems that people have considered unsolvable.
Hmm.
And they've tried, 1,000 different ways to solve them, and they haven't worked. And so then you start adopting an attitude like, well, it's not possible to solve it because we've tried everything. And somebody's born and goes, yeah, but you haven't tried this. And sometimes they're 18 or 22, and they go like, who are you? What do you know? Um, but it goes on and on. It's interesting because some of those people that are born are not necessarily spiritual people. They may be visionaries, and they may see great economic opportunity in cleaning up the world. I mean, that's not bad either. But I'm clear. We need kind of a spiritual revolution or awakening to change anything on the planet. Otherwise, we're just going to recreate the same thing in new ways. And that's part of it. There are and will be people being born. I don't think spirituality is going to look the way it has 500, 1,000, 2,000 years ago, because we're living in a very different reality. The message is the same. The way we apply the message and how we move into those experiences, I think, is going to get updated to be relevant to what's going on around us. For me, the bottom line, the answer is always one thing: is Lev, incorporating Lev into, we can have a very long talk about what that means, which we won't have right now. But I just see it's we need change in many different ways. We need physical change, we need economic change, but we're not going to have physical and economic change unless we change the way we look at things. Where if I think that that it's wonderful for me to get very, very rich from cleaning up a bunch of problems that are affecting a whole lot of people, that's, to me, just more of the same. So there's also going to be that to me is part of where we're going with Uranus, a spiritual waking up as well as a material waking up. That's a digression. It's not really germane to talking about Uranus.
There was I had a time, like, I think what you said is interesting, the spiritual awakening and material awakening, and there is a lot of difference. And I just looked at the chart when I faced a huge personal tragedy in 2013, where Uranus was, this is sidereal position. Uranus at mid 15 Pisces, and my natal Neptune in mid 15 Sagittarius. So there was almost an exact square. The transit Uranus in Pisces was forming with the natal position of Neptune in Sagittarius. And it was I mean, it was an entire 360-degree turnaround in my life where I had to suddenly be a leader of a family when my father had passed away then, and suddenly things had to change where I had to completely get into a different role into my family. It took at least 12 to 18 months to kind of come out of that situation psychologically, because it was very hard to deal with the word. It's not just about the person not being there, but it's just the impact that he leaves at almost all corners of the house and the family, in terms of uh, uh, how things are changing. The impact and the influence is profound, uh, be it positive or negative. To me, see, there is a lot of negative things with a person not being there, but I think it was a personal transformation that I had in myself, and it is already there, written everywhere. That death kind of teaches you better than anything else. So uh, it was probably a spiritual awakening to me, and I kind of tried to understand myself only from then on. Before that, I was leading a very normal and a carefree life, but after that, I think things suddenly changed, and I'm not the person which I was before November 2013. So uh, I used to be overconfident, but I'm very calculatively confident at this point of time, and that is the major lesson that the transit Uranus squiring Neptune has probably taught me during that particular point of time, by being calculatively uh, confident and aggressive, not always kind of overconfident and letting the mouth do the talking. So I think that was a greatest lesson that I learned, and it was very sudden. And Uranus is kind of dealing with sudden transformations, and
Yes.
Pisces naturally being the natural 12th house. I had a lot of uncertainties. It was my 11th house, so the square of 8 and 11. So there is a lot of transformation that is going around. That was there at that point of time, and yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to highlight this because you said something that I could easily resonate with from my own personal experience.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And that's, the deepest part, which I feel, in fact, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I will mention a little bit because it really is relating to Uranus. It is about our nervous systems and and the traumatic places that we go to, which are based, triggered is the term, emotional triggering. In other words, somebody does something or says something, and all of a sudden we are emotionally reactive. We're reacting. And this is based generally on past experiences. Um, the discussion comes up, was it past lives or my childhood? And it's kind of the same thing, because most of the time, whatever we're having in our childhood is just a continuation of what we had in past lives. So it's kind of a non-issue. The answer can be both.
Mhm.
That's not really the point. The gist of it is that we get triggered based on experiences we have had before. And when we're really triggered, we're almost not there. It's like you're carrying out a script. There are certain places that are issues for most of us, right? And if we get upset, like I might get upset by a certain kind of thing. And when I get into that space where I'm upset about that, and I'll start saying things, and somebody listening, and somebody that knows me while I'm listening, it's like, well, you pretty much said about the exact same words about 37 times before. And that's a trigger. Now, most of us have sort of learned to ignore these things or to pretend they're not there or to blame them on somebody else. So the healing of all of this, which is really where my life is moving, is in having what I would call self-compassion, that I understand I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm not doing anything bad. I have had things occur that were very painful, whether that involves loss. I mean, the loss of a father is a big thing, a really big thing, especially if it's a father where there was lots of love between the father and the child. That's a big thing. And there is very much this period of integrating and accepting that change. We look at it as a loss. From the soul's perspective, your father had his journey mission, which he lived out. And so his time for his mission was over. How do we know? It's not here.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in accidents anymore. I mean, there's like, it's all in the script, so to speak. And so it dovetails perfectly in your soul and you. At that point, you were destined to have a step up. And the script said this is going to occur from your father passing unexpectedly. But so, as you said, certain things came out of that that were unlikely to have occurred any other way. And on the human level, there's a lot of pain and grief and sadness and like what's going on and readjusting and all this. And we're not going to like some or a lot of that. And I will say, I'm saying this a little humorously, the good news is we're not expected to like it. We don't have to like it. Life isn't standing there going, you must love this. I don't love it, I hate it. But also, like in hindsight, see, it was very good what you just said, because in hindsight, you recognize what you gained from that experience. That it helped you grow, that you became more than you were before. And that is now your father had his own life path. So he was on his own journey, and you're on your own journey, and the place where they intersected. So you each affected each other's journey, but you have your unique journey. And that helped you, even though it was very painful, taking a step up, because it made you more into the person you needed to become at that point, to be able to carry out more of what your actual life plans are, your intent. From that perspective, and I've noticed, I mean, it can take it took me 5 years for some things I've been through to be able to see to feel appreciation. I can appreciate something without necessarily liking it because of what it brought into my life. And from that perspective, life is amazing because it truly, truly is. And in this experience, one has to have themselves, because you don't get this from a book or from just saying the words, but that it is always giving us what we need, even though sometimes what we need we're going to experience as pretty painful. That I just realized is a really good segue back to talking about Saturn and Uranus. Because Saturn is what you knew and who you were up until the point that your father passed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you knew. That's who you were. We will assume you were more or less pretty happy, with who you were. And then all of a sudden, wham. And that's Uranus injecting. And look at the transit you described. I mean, you can't get more perfect than that.
It's also basically a sign-based square between the natal position of Uranus and the transit position of Uranus. So it's almost, it's explicit.
And that's the timing. Yes, exactly. And this is why, more and more I look at it as there's basically a script. We come in like a storyline, almost like a movie. We get a little bit of say, and we can ad lib a little bit here and there, but there's basically a script that life wants played out. This is in life's big play, and we have our roles in it. And you are the star of your movie, and I'm the star of my movie. And my role in your movie is different than your role in my movie. In other words, I have a different role in your movie than you have in mine, and so forth, and yet we interact. Similarly with the parents. So the parents have a script. You're a child that's born into their script, but you also have your own totally different, separate life. Ideally, you're moving beyond even where your parents were able to go. And part of why you're able to move beyond where your parents are able to go is because of what they gave you.
Sure.
And so we're like building, like each generation building on what came before.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
We get to be part of this. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there is always an encouraging thought in almost every situation. So, yes.
Yeah. So if the Uranus comes in, Saturn is who you were before. Uranus comes in and goes, it's not personal. It's not saying, hey, you're going to get it now. That's just the time. The unexpected event occurs. Your life changes. I like to say it humorously, somebody forgot to send me the email letting me know what was coming. It's just wham. It happened. Right? Like, it would be nice if I had a little advance warning. I could start ready for it. But
it would be great if Uranus gives a call or send an email.
Yes. But the shock is part of the whole experience. Because it literally blows out of the water my sense of who I am. I'm no longer who I was. I also like to say, in other words, our identity is cracking apart as a result of this.
Uh-huh.
I also like to say, it's not like I have a plan B sense of my identity sitting on the shelf for in case something happens to the one I have now. I mean,
it's never a plan B for sudden happenings or something like that.
Exactly. And
I mean, there is not even a plan A, so let alone plan B.
Well, there is a plan A, but we just don't realize it.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say we're living out plan A without realizing that's what we're doing.
Okay.
But
that's vintage evolutionary astrology.
But, you know, this also illustrates the value in astrology. I mean, I find a lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, some people want to use astrology to try to know what's coming or avoid what's coming or feel safe in what's coming or figure out how to get out of what's coming, which I don't think, that is kind of coming from an insecurity in life. And that's okay. I have want to be really clear. There's not a judgment on this. In other words, many of us have not learned to trust life. We have had experiences in our life that have, the way that we have perceived what happened, that we don't trust life. And I find honestly that, you know, I have met a number of people, India people, mostly in spiritual groups and so forth, that within the culture of India, there's a whole lot more of acceptance of all of this, way more than there is, say, in the United States, in the West. Because we literally feel over here, many people, we're on our own. We're on our own. This process is not one that's helping me. It's like nature, you know, nature is going to send a tornado through my house. I'm on my own. But it really is about realizing that whatever happens, no matter how difficult, traumatizing, whatever, it's never a punishment. And in some way that we may not be able to understand at present yet, it is there to help us grow. But it can be very difficult at times. But the more that I integrate that it's kind of like trusting, like life is like a process. All this stuff is going on. Trusting the process, that it's not out to get me, that it's actually out to help me. And even though the way that I have perceived a lot of things is the opposite of that. And this is where I feel insecurity comes in people, because they're afraid that change is going to make their life worse. And I would say change is going to make your life different. Not worse, different. And there's not much you can do about it, because what's going to happen is going to happen. So it's kind of like Saturn is to get married, so to speak, to the way things are now, and to not be okay that they change. And Uranus is, well, it's going to change anyway. And so somehow the marriage of that, and put Neptune in there, because if you want to look at that as the spiritual principle and the heart of life, that it's going to change, and it's all for your benefit, and it's all to serve you. And we know, like a loving universe, we know that some of this is going to be difficult for you, and we really have your back. We really have your back, and we want to show you and let you experience that we have your back. So when you don't have to like it, but change is going to occur. I also look at change more and more as actually a graduation. It's a sign of a graduation, that who I have been, I've learned what is there to learn for who I have been and who I am. So there's no more growth there. And so the circumstances are going to change. And it's congratulations, not, oh my God.
Sure.
Congratulations. And because we're giving you a greater assignment because you have earned it. But again, they don't send you the email with the certificate in it.
Okay.
So we misinterpret it sometimes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think that was. I think I enjoyed this session very much. I mean, I could relate to a lot of personal things in whatever you said, and yeah, I'm already in love with this series of evolutionary astrology, and I'm looking forward to explore more. So yeah, if you have some final thoughts as it is, I think if you don't have, I think this probably is the end of this video.
Yeah, I think I've said
Eh,
what's there.
Okay,
Thank you. I've enjoyed this too.
okay, sure. So if you want to get in touch with Steve, I think you can just click the links in the description page. And Steve is also presenting some more talks in the EA Zoom meetings, which is one of the most uh, engaging evolutionary astrology groups on Facebook. And Steve gives very regular speeches there, and it's one of the greatest platforms to explore evolutionary astrology. And you can also get in touch with Steve through the link in the description page. So thanks for joining, Steve,
You're very welcome. You're
and
very welcome. We'll talk again soon.
yeah, sure.